Namaskar viewers, Anil Kant Choudhary or AKC. I'm sharing part 2 of Common Basic Approach. In this video, you will see two other common approaches which was applied. You might have seen this in previous videos. These are relating to similar instances from the past and anticipating issues proactively along with the likely potential fixes. Now, before we move on, let's understand knowledge management a bit, because when you're talking about leveraging past, we are talking about knowledge, right? What we have gathered. So knowledge management plays a big role in that. Now, when we say knowledge management, it's a pretty wide, broad area. It's basically a collection of method which relates to creating, maintaining, managing knowledge in a different way, and it should help the organization. End of it, right? The effectiveness improves. Now there are different components of knowledge management. The strategy, very important as an organization. What strategy we apply for knowledge management. The process, how to retrieve the knowledge, how to share it, how to update it. That's the process part. People, who are the people who are involved in creating those knowledge artifacts, scrutinizing them, making sure they are available in the right way and contributing to the whole thing. And tool is also very, very important, because you need tools which can help you pull right information quickly. So the tool becomes very, very important. So while all these are four key components of it, the most important, and possibly a combination of all of this which results in that, is the content, the quality and quantity of the content which is there in the knowledge management. Now, these content could be of different categories, right? Different types. For example, you will have project related artifacts which are there. You will have sales related documents. You can have all other kind of documents as well. What I'm going to talk about is two specific kind of knowledge content. This is called best practices and key learning. Now, as part of this common approach, these are the two which we will see an impact of that. So when we say best practices, these are typically helps in terms of understanding the problem, right? So when you apply those best practices, you will be able to understand the problem better, right? And before you start working on it. It also suggests, best practice also suggests that you measure and track the work, because more you measure, more you track, you will be able to see how it is moving and you can get the work done better. Best practices also suggest that you have to update your artifacts regularly, because if it is not updated, it may not be relevant. I mean, if you have something which is say 7, 8, 10 years old and not updated at all, maybe it may not be valid in the current context, because things have changed from that time. Another important thing is this best practices should be easily accessible. The ease of use of this best practice is very, very important. You might have certain things there, but if you're not able to use them easily, it becomes a problem. And also the classification of best practices in terms of, let's say if there's a governance related best practices, there's a client satisfaction related best practices. If you club it that way, it becomes easier. So this is one set of knowledge management document. The other is learning. Now, while best practice talks about what helped, what worked, the learning, or which typically is a collection of different kind of failures which may have happened, and that would have people would have taken action based on that. Now, when we are talking about challenge, we are talking about failure, in a sense. So if we are able to look at those failures in the past, we can really see what we tried and what actions were taken in that, or what we need to avoid, both of that. So failure is the best teacher. Yes, it teaches a lot of things. We also say failure is a richer brother, richer than success, because any project will have few successes but many failures, right? Small, big, many failures. So it's more richer. And also in terms of information which a failure keeps is much more useful. Discarding failure is impossible. I mean, you can delay it, something, you can defer it for some time, but you cannot discard it, right? So it will come and hit you. Failure is big sibling. Success is coming towards the end, so it's the youngest one in the lot, whereas failure is the early in the life, so it's a elder of the lot, right? So if you look at between failure and success, failure has a longer age. And reusing component of failure is a prudent thought, because if you are able to reuse something from the failure, learning of the failure, then that will help you to avoid in the future. So as part of knowledge management, these are the two important knowledge management which we use and we applied in this. Now let's see what actually we used. So then we can come up with the related instances and from where we picked up. So one of them is called Red Book. Now we call it Red Book. It is not a book anymore. Now everything is digital. There is no color. But the idea to keep it red was to keep a track of some important ones. In fact, I like to thank one of my early leaders. His name is PK Sinha. I worked with him way back in Tata Steel, and he used to have something like this, and I learned this from him. So thanks PK for your guidance that time, and I still carry this forward. So this Red Book typically will have failure and successes and complaint and accolades. So under each of this, you will have a description and context. Also steps taken. When in case of failure, it is steps taken to mitigate. In case of success, it was a step taken to replicate, right? And also what worked and what did not work. Similarly for complaint also, complaint you will have steps taken to mitigate, accolades, steps taken to replicate. So when you collate as end of the project or during the project, some of the key successes, failure under these three categories, context, steps taken, and what worked, what did not, right? That becomes your Red Book, which you can keep referring. So this is one thing which I used. And from that, when it comes to this particular instance, that strained relation which we are talking about, we pulled out what we had done in the past. So in the failure category, we could see a description about a unhappy client from a USA. It was a client which was not happy, and the step which we had taken is there was a structured approach with clear mapping of client to vendor, mapping the frequency output. That was something which was tried out and it had worked. After we faced the failure, we had tried it and it worked. And the step taken was, it was called CREATE. CREATE is an acronym for Client Relation Enhancing and Tracking Exercise. So that is something which was useful. So we picked that. Similarly, we looked at another failure instance, which was for a UK client, where we had to do a lot of rework, right, due to limited expertise. So there we had invested in a dedicated architect and SME, and that had helped. So we picked up that as a way forward to address the current scenario. So like that, we looked at success, complaint, accolades, and we picked up the relevant steps which was taken that point of time, and we applied into this. Okay. Another thing which we looked at is anticipating issues proactively with likely potential fixes. Now, while we have done all of the actions taken, we also wanted to anticipate if something goes wrong, how we can. So we came up with something which is called issue prediction or issue predictor. So the team got together, we worked together, and then we debated and came up with a big list. What you are seeing here is a smaller list from that, because there were multiple different points which came up and from which we picked up some key ones. So here I am showing only 4 of them. Like for example, increase in attrition. That came as a potential thing which will happen. And if it happens, it will have a severe impact. So the solution or workaround was to identify some critical member and get them ready with visa so we could place them on site, right? So in a way, it will motivate them, it will help them be close to client. Going onshore itself is a motivation in a lot of ways, so that will also prevent attrition from happening. Another thought was given is to provide some financial incentive to the experienced and vulnerable member, where we are expecting that something could go wrong. So then we also looked at, if we take these two action, then will its action effective, right? So the consensus of the group was, yes, it will be effective, effectiveness will be high. And the crack team which should work on this, the main would be DH and DM. At the bottom you see the full expansion of all these acronyms, like DH is delivery head, DM is delivery manager. So like that we identified, and there will be support coming from a vertical head, a finance manager, overseas operations, and workforce manager. So like that we looked at what are the different issues, and we picked up from that. For example, another one was a likely issue that we may not get extension of renewal. This again could be severe, and we identified action as proactive, engaging client for such engagement and build their confidence. So what we should do, how we reach out to them proactively and provide some commitment assurance again that we will retain the members, we will retain the members with the knowledge, right? That kind of assurance. Another thing came up is in terms of backlog in error, increase in backlog in error. That also will have an impact compared to other two, little less, but still high impact. So the actions came out is to augment team for a short period so that we can reduce the backlog, and also pull in some of the architect and SMEs for a few months as investment, right? And finally, the further dip in margin, that was also a issue which was identified with a medium impact. Medium because it is happening, impact is more internal to the organization, not to the client, right? So work out a predicted number for next couple of quarters, and then take approval from the senior management. So that kind of an approach which was taken, and for each of this the effectiveness and crack team was identified. So with this two, we could identify a number of steps which we can take and address the challenge. Just to recap, this was the case, the strain relation with the client, and these were the key indicators, the CSAT, the growth, margin, attrition, all of that. And we had applied some changes. This is a summary of that. If you recollect from Imitable Success Stories Series 1, these were the key changes which we had applied to address the strain relationship. The one which you see in green, this came from these two approaches, referring to our past history and also anticipating the issues and working on that. As you can see, out of all 12, there were 9 of them came from past and this anticipating issues. So you can see how useful that exercise is, because it gave a lot of actions which had proven itself in the past, and again it proved it here as well. So that's how we can apply this common approach. Okay, so I hope you liked it and you will benefit from it. You can apply it, use it in bits and pieces, in whole together, the way you feel, right? And if you have any suggestions, any feedback, or anything you want to share as a story you want it to be shared across, do write to me. My mail ID remains same, connectwithakc@gmail.com. Okay, so thanks for watching, and all the best in your project. Bye bye.